word by word, but you already know the questions are already.
No, I don't. I didn't look at the questions. I normally do things off the top of my head. I've never actually. I've only scripted very little, like maybe 3 or 4 videos of mine. I'm a fan of free flowing thought. So I thought you could do the questions, and I'll just answer them, and we'll see where it takes us.
That's good. That's good because I don't remember a majority of it. So I got the gist. So I wrote down some stuff, but that's the thing is I'm not going to do it word by word, so it's no point of it. And then people are still messaging me right now, and this. Oh God, are you recording right now?
Yeah, I've got my a screen capture going on, and for some reason it's saying that it's because Facebook is using the mic from the cam. It's like, oh, I can't record an audio. So I'm like, well, I got an audio thing recording right now too. So all I have to do basically is use my software, and I can combine the video with the audio. It's fine. I do it all the time. It's a little bit of work.
Lower to the new shirts. That's what kind of t-shirt is that? Is it a band?
Yeah. They actually.
I got the.
They sing. They have a song about media being fake.
I gotta listen to that song. That would be my favorite song.
It's called.
I rant about it on my Facebook constantly. I also got that "Don't Tread on Me" flag, the guilty flag. That's in the background as well. I always have to show my pride in my country, so
I
the first.
I never knew what the "Don't Tread on Me" stuff stood for. I never got it.
It's basically Gilly was a general for the U.S. military army and during the Revolutionary War, and that was his battle flag. Same thing with the Confederate flag. It's kind of a battle flag for Georgia. This is a battle flag for a general.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's where that comes from.
American history. And a lot of people who are Tea Partiers or people who are the Libertarian Party would use that a lot, and that's why the Southern Poverty Law Center labels it as a white supremacist flag, which is not. I've seen plenty of people just have that flag as American history. But of course, they would think my George Washington tattoo, 1776, was a supremacist thing, which is stupid. The first question is YouTube and how your career is doing. Is the censorship and the demonetization? Do you think it's holding you back from your real goals?
No. Ultimately, the idea is that if I get enough on YouTube, like look at what Sargon is doing. You can turn it into a point of activism, and like right now the FDA is trying to regulate these heavily, and it's like if you get enough people on board that are like, no, we're not going to do this, they're going to. Like look at social justice and look at what they're doing. Okay, so they attack a company. They go to Twitter. They go to social media, and they attack a company because of a microaggression or some shit like that. Some bullshit. But see, the thing is like, okay, so the FDA is trying to attack something. This creates jobs, by the way. This is new to our world market. Is these vape mods, but they're like, oh, they're marketing to children. Well, I don't think that they are. It says on here you have to be 18 years of age or older to buy it, and that it contains nicotine. Nicotine is very addictive. So it's like, by doing that, not only are you going to take rights, liberties, and freedoms away. So, okay, so social justice goes on, and they attack these businesses over horse shit. Like, oh my God, you kicked somebody out for loitering. And then it's like, well, why don't we attack the FDA? Because they're trying to basically, you remember back maybe a decade ago, they were trying to introduce a tax reform where they overtaxed junk food and soda pop.
I heard about that, yeah. But like a sugar tax to it for soda, extra tax to it because of the bad health benefits of it. And I mean, that's the thing is, I mean, why do we need to be taxed for this soda drinks that not very much people drink if they're thinking wisely? But not only that, I mean, you're adding an extra tax for a just in case. How do you know that money's going to go back straight to the pockets of the lobbyists?
Well,
There's no sense to it.
Honestly, all it does is punish the consumer. That's all it does, is it punishes the consumer. And it's like, I don't feel like it's my place to tell people how they want to live their life. I mean, we all have unhealthy habits, and if it improves the quality of life, who am I to judge?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you make your own choices at the end of the day. The government should not make choices for you. Second question. Google search, if you Google anything with Trump, about 96% of anything that you Google or Bing or anything like that, it's always negative. And it doesn't have a positive and negative, it's just mostly negative. Instead of just giving both sides of the story, they're only giving one biased side of the story. Does that surprise you?
No, if you Google Trump, you'll see a list from CNN. And I'm the liberal here. But it's true. It's true. Like
I showed you about that recently. This is recently. I showed you that post about from Mark Dyson Anomaly that literally they've been caught. Fake news been caught. CNN been caught. Again, faking the news, and then somebody tried to share it, and they complained to me they can't share it.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that screenshot. I wonder if there's a way. Can you screen share things with Google? Yeah. Is this it? What is this? Screen sharing disabled for this call because... Oh, I see. No, we can't do it right now.
It's like, you gotta be kidding me. It's like they've been called on actually literally trying to screen green screen the background or acting like they're in like such stress during the storm, and they call them out their bullshit out and faking certain situations. And they had enough nerve to not us to report on the news, but you can report on whatever you want to. It's this kind of hypocrisy in it, especially when you have Facebook in the back pocket of CNN. It's kind of messed up.
Well, one of the things that I found interesting is that I saw a lot of memery going around on Facebook where they were saying, why is it that the right wants to criticize Hillary Clinton over the Benghazi thing, but they don't want to hold Trump accountable for the hurricane thing? And I'm like, but Trump did his part. He sent rations over there, and the mayor of the mayor ended up not doing their job, and you had truckloads of food rotting in a government parking lot.
That's crazy. That's insane. I mean, that's the one thing is that
and so
the media.
Somebody was held accountable for that too. By the way, I mean.
Exactly. Well, you can't help what Mother Nature does. You can't help what the other side would do. That's the simple fact of it is.
No, you can't. You can be like the Florida citizens and try to shoot at the hurricane and blow fans at it.
Oh, God. Okay, I got a third question. You know how they have InfoWars banned from on YouTube and social media? Same thing with Proud Boys and Gavin McInnes. Do you think it's going to get even worse when we have even liberals like Dave Rubin, you, and a few other ones who are critical thinkers like Bill Maher, who are liberals but don't like the SJW culture, who despise it? Do you think you guys will be next on that chopping block?
Well, I think what's going to be very interesting is for the authoritarian left, the social justice people. I think they're going to start to find that they're going to end up with their foot in their mouth, because the thing is okay. So, part of the terms of agreement is no incitement to violence, no harassment. So if a social justice warrior, like let's say, starts harassing you because you're a Republican, that is against the terms of agreement, and you could absolutely file a report on them, and they could have their shit banned. And I think that that's going to come to be a shock to them. But absolutely, like, I try to be low key on Facebook and Twitter because I think Facebook and Twitter is the worst. That's like social justice hub as far as I'm concerned. I have not been shadow banned on Twitter, but I've noticed I've been shadow banned on Facebook because there's certain people that I have been friends with for a very long time. They're liberal, and they they understand the neo-skepticism. They understand the arguments that I make and everything. But like there's a few people I know that they perform in bands locally, and they're pretty popular. And they want to be socially, politically neutral on social media. And everything that they post, I don't see. And they don't see anything that I post unless you go and look for it.
So I have a question. What do you hope for the future for your channel? And who else you would think you would be interviewed by or would talk to or try to do partnership with, or you would interview for the future by those kind of standards you're hoping for? Your quality.
Well, I would I'd be willing to talk to anybody really, but I think as far as partnership goes, I think the important thing to me is authenticity. That is the important thing. Is that when I started doing this YouTube thing, doing the social political commentary, the neo-skepticism type stuff, I said before I make a video, I have to make sure that I can stand behind what I'm saying 100%. Because if I can't stand behind it, then I'm in a lot of trouble if somebody tries to call me out on it. It's like, I mean...
But there's some stuff I will say that the thing is you look on a way that's not right or left. You look in a way of your opinion. I have somewhat of a bias, but at the same time, there's mistakes that I will make mistakes myself. And sometimes I accidentally put out fake news, and I will correct myself and say, yeah, I put out something that I shouldn't put out, and it was construed as otherwise. And I will admit my fault. And that's the problem is with media these days, that they're too prideful. And you're a person who's willing to make mistakes and willing to grow from that and actually seek the truth.
Yes.
You don't a bias. Me, I'm kind of like, fuck the creds, fuck this, such W's. But I do complain about my own party as well. I do am critical. I'm a person who I dislike Josh Philistine. I dislike Ted Cruz. I hate the Bush administration. Like there's some things I can sit there and say that there's some aspects of conservatism that I disagree with, especially the whole gay marriage thing with the bathroom. That is kind of like while we're doing this, And then it's kind of to the point that they sound like hypocrites. But, to me, if you want to talk about true freedom and true opportunity, I mean, you sit there and say, hey, we're traditionalists, but at the same time, we're supposed to be proactively freedom of speech, then why are you doing this? Are you for liberty and justice, why are you getting in the way of people's liberty and justice? You get my point.
I think that I'm very much in favor of anything that gives liberty and freedom to people, and that's kind of like when I look at a political thing, like a political article or something that's happening in politics, that's the base philosophy that I go by. I've said it so many times, is that I go by this philosophy. I believe in choices, not one's ability to impose one's will on others against their own will. And that's the bedrock philosophy of where I stand politically.
There's a fifth question. Of course, you read through. There's like 9 questions I'm putting out. Okay, guys like Paul Joseph Watson, guys like Gavin McInnes, and then Mark Dice, who's known for being outspoken a lot about a lot of things. Even I mentioned about Blair White, and then Sargon and Khan. They have lots and lots of death threats between the alt-right, between the alt-left, between Black Lives Matter, and then Antifa members, stuff that they've been gone in fistfights with. Have you had a counter with these people in person, or mostly on death threats or comments, or Facebook messages, and I had a few Facebook friends, like 8 in 1 month, and these are people that I knew of in Lexington because of my political stance.
I've never received a death threat, but I have encountered them. I actually, like, there was a one time, a long time ago, I ended up in a spat with an Antifa member between me, this Antifa guy, and Prince of Queens. Now, I'm not saying the Prince of Queens knows me. You know, I'm just some random guy that is schmuck that he was talking to on the internet. He probably wouldn't remember it if you asked him. But that did happen. That was a spat that happened on Twitter. But usually when I engage with those types of people, like, I have a very, very formal way of addressing their stances. Like, I don't come out and say, this is my stance, I disagree with you, I think you're full of shit. I don't just go, like, straight for the jugular. Like, I sit back and I go, okay, what's your stance? Why do you say that? You know, like, tell me about it. I'm trying to probe for information, and the more information I can get, then I go and make a video about it.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I've countered these people before, and like, again, I'm like 5'8", 220 pounds. I'm burly as hell. I mean, at the most, I messaged you. At the most, I had people flip me off or say something rude or, you know, throw eggs at me from their car and drive off quickly. But I never got to the point that they went in my face a few times and ran their mouth, but they never take a swing at me. And it's you know, I mean, I would have gotten in trouble for it because I would probably knock the crap out of them and just to the dirt, you know.
Well, it's really weird when they engage with me because I you know, at first I think they assume my position, and then they're like they scream the rhetoric of, oh, racism, and then the moment they say anti-LGBT, it's like, I'm a homosexual.
Yeah.
They're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. So, Antifa member, your job as an Antifa guy is to protect me, but you're conflicted because I don't have the same political philosophy as you. I don't want anarcho-communism, whatever the fuck that is, because those are two polar opposite philosophical or economic ideas.
They don't even know what the hell they're talking about.
No.
Like, I actually had one Antifa member say he was a libertarian. I'm like, you're farthest from libertarian because you support a group that is anti-libertarian.
No.
And I had them call me a Nazi, white supremacist because I'm a Trump supporter, I'm a conservative, and I don't have a "Don't Tread on Me" flag on me tattooed. But yet I'm a Nazi supposedly. Yeah. Supposedly I am. It's kind of hypocrisy that it's like, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm Jewish, I'm a quarter Israeli, and it's like, yeah, I'm a Nazi. And I just want to sit there and explain to me what makes you think I'm a Nazi. They couldn't explain it to me. They would still call me, oh, you're a neo-Nazi because you're right wing. They never explained to me why they would think that. They never do.
Well, the Antifa guy that I ran into on Twitter, I think he was hardcore Antifa. Most of Antifa that I meet, they seem like brainwashed idiots. You know, like there was this punk movement back in the 90s. They were called Utopian Anarchists, and to me, Antifa seems kind of an off-branch of that. It's really just like Utopia anarchists that have, like, flipped their shit. And a lot of it, I don't think they really know much about politics. I think that they're just reactionary. I don't think they're well educated. This guy on Twitter, though, this Antifa guy that I ran into on Twitter, he was educated. He did know what he was talking about, and he was a terrible person. He literally advocated for killing people for this greater cause of communism. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, you know what you're talking about. You know what communism is. You know what stakes are at play, and you're comfortable with this. And he was coming right out and saying it, like, yeah, send people off to the gulag. Yeah, send people off to death camps. Yeah, that's fine. We need segregation because black people need to be put on a pedestal, kind of thing. And I was like, any Antifa member that I had seen previous to that, it was like, well, they just anybody that they perceive as being a fascist, racist, whatever, even if they're not, like you got to silence them or something. But this guy was literally like, no, like, you know, I want to put to death like anybody that just thinks differently than me. And it's like, wow, this is a hardcore Antifa guy.
Yeah, it's like Antifa is pretty close to neo-Nazis almost, because I mean, it's their ideology of like, you know, of anti-freedom of speech, you know, anybody who's not desirable, force them into concentration camps kind of ideology. It's like, it's kind of like, you kind of contradiction what you really support, and they're just bringing that.
Well, they're like, this guy that was hardcore, and I think he was really, really deep into it because of the way that he was talking and his understanding of politics. But it's a really weird concept to say that you're anti-racism, but you're in support of segregation, but for a different reason than the alt-right. And this is why the alt-right likes Antifa, is because it's what's good for the goose is good for the gander type thing. It pushes them closer to their goal.
Exactly. And you know, it makes them look like they're sympathetic, but they're not. They're just as bad as they are. And that's the funny thing is that I sit there and say, you know, the alt-right are a bunch of socialists, and then like, oh no, they're not. I'm like, look, I've seen videos of Richard Spencer talking about socialism, racial socialism, of actually upping the life of white people, of getting free money and putting down other people of different race.
Whereas Antifa's the opposite. Put down the white people and uplift the black people. But
yeah, it's basically kind of the same.
But segregation is segregation, and we've gone over that before in the United States, and it doesn't work. And nature will still take its course, and people are going to fuck. they're going to fuck, and they're going to produce mixed babies. They're going to do it.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's gonna happen.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's fun. You know, I mean, I love fucking black chicks. Like black chicks, especially with thick ass. Oh God.
Well, I'm just saying you can't stop nature. You can't stop
it.
You can't. I mean.
Well, I also there's a sixth question. You know, your influences are like Sargon of Akkad and plenty of YouTubers that you look up to. Is there anybody outside of YouTube or in philosophy, music, or who is a writer? Musician, or say musician, but anybody outside of YouTube and philosophy that you look at your philosophy under as well.
Well, I would say that I have been a big fan of, and I would love to say Christopher Hitchens, but I honestly wasn't introduced to Christopher Hitchens until later on. I have been a huge Richard Dawkins fan for a very, very long time, as well as Sam Harris, and there was also a guy named Dan Dennett, and I am a big fan of his, as well as Helen Fisher, who is a neurologist. So I would say that a lot of, and Penn and Teller. Penn and Teller's bullshit. I think that was a big influence to me, because when I first started the YouTube, that was my thought. I was like, I'm gonna find pseudoscience, I'm gonna debunk it. And then when I originally ran into the social justice stuff, I thought that it was all conspiracy. I was like, this isn't real. This doesn't exist. And until I embarked on it in real life, and I'm like, oh shit, it does exist. Well, good thing it's not very big. And then I found out about New York and California and some of the laws that have been passed, and I'm like. And then what happened in Canada with the, what was it, C-16? I was like, holy
the free speech laws against, I think, Muslims, and then also against, you can't say anything bad about Muslims or against homosexuals or something like that, or the LGBT community.
The non-binaries and their 30,000 protected pronouns.
Yeah, and then they want to turn kids into transsexuals without even thinking about, hey, what's for the future for that kid, instead of just, hey, we're just going to turn him whatever he wants to. I think next day he wants to be a woman, next day he wants to be a dinosaur.
Well, I don't know anybody that's actually wanted to identify as a dinosaur, and there's very, very, very small amount of cases of kids that have been put on HRT, and I think there's some lawsuits involved in that. But believe it or not, I actually know a few gender fluid, non-binary people, and they do not get offended when I call them by their biological gender. They don't get offended by that at all. It's like passing the salt. It's like asking to pass the salt. It's nothing. And they actually are against the laws in California and New York saying that you can't misgender somebody, because they even find that ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people mistaken people. If you look from somebody from China, I have people mistaking me as a woman a few times before. I know my mom, she has short hair, and they mistaken her as a guy. It happens. If you walk into a store, say, "How you doing, miss? How you doing, sir?" You can't help. I mean, you can't tell the difference. So, I mean, then why punish somebody for making a small mistake like that? It's ridiculous.
Well, it's as simple as like correcting. So when I was younger, I had long hair and I was mistaken, and it was before I hit puberty too. So I was mistaken for a female quite a bit, and it's just as simple as saying like I'm a boy actually, and they go, "Oh, I'm sorry," and it's like, no, it's no big deal. It's it happens.
Some people would take that, but would do that. Majority of people, but there is a chances that you think they would take advantage of it just for financial gain. And I know I worked in retail before, and people would accidentally fall. You get in
I understand where that's going, and I think the right kind of attacks the gay rights thing because of the non-binaries, and I think the non-binaries are kind of pushing the gay rights back a few feet, and I'm not appreciative of that. But I've seen a lot of right-leaning channels talk about, well, you give gay people rights, and then this happens. And it's like, well, no, I think these people are trying to ride, they're trying to surf that wave for all it's worth, if you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, it's kind of like they're crazy and delusional, and gay people only want one thing, is to have gay marriage so they can be equal as every other couple. And I agree with that. I think I have no problem with gay marriage.
Yeah, gay marriage isn't really taking rights, liberties, and freedoms away from anybody. It's just giving rights, liberties, and freedom to a specific demographic of people.
And there's only a very small majority who would cause a ruckus with a business, but it's only a very, very small majority of couples would do that. And, it doesn't happen that often. I mean, yeah, there's some businesses who are real douchebags, and there's some people who just have what they believe in.
Well, there was an instance of a lesbian couple that was kicked out of an IHOP because they didn't want them in there. They weren't doing anything lewd or obscene or anything like that.
Yeah.
And they ended up protesting the IHOP, but they did it within the legal parameters that you're supposed to do. They were in so many yards or whatever away, and they weren't disrupting the business, but they were just vocalizing, hey, this business will deny you service for being a homosexual, and
that's pretty wrong that IHOP would do that. That's ridiculous, because
when it hit their bank accounts, when people stopped going there because they're like, oh, what a bunch of bigots. They changed their tune, and they were like, no, we shouldn't do that. We should be, a smart business maneuver is to be socially and politically neutral. Yeah. That's not crony capitalism. That's just smart business.
Exactly. It happens the other way around. There's a T-shirt salesman. It was hands-on graphics here in Western Kentucky. He's a very, very religious person. Has no problem with gays. Has no problem with lesbians or people who are trans. And he even did like musicians band T-shirts for their band, and like they were like I think it was a village people reunion kind of T-shirts and stuff like that. But he refused to do the gay pride T-shirt, but he was willing to give other businesses to call up other businesses for them to say, hey, look, I don't want to do this T-shirt, but if you're willing to try these companies out, and I'm willing to call him for you to do these T-shirts for you. And he still was put to court for it against his business. And he was being super polite. He wasn't saying, no, I'm going to deny your service. He was saying, I don't feel comfortable doing it because of my...
He wasn't like, no, fuck you, faggots. He wasn't like that.
Yeah, he wasn't doing that. He wasn't being a total fucking asshole and kicking him out. He just didn't feel comfortable. If I went up to him, to that T-shirt company, and I had done it before, and I didn't know this. I didn't know this at the time being. This is before that situation. I was looking for T-shirts made. There was a certain T-shirt I wanted to make was with the pentagram, and I think it was a picture of Aleister Crowley with 666 on it. He refused to do it because it wasn't his religion, and I respected that, and I walked out, and I'm like, that's cool, I can go somewhere else. And he actually gave me a few pamphlets of other T-shirt companies who was willing to do it. So it didn't bother me, you know? And, okay, I got a second question here.
Okay.
Okay, what's really dividing our country? What's your opinion about, what's your philosophy, why we're dividing our country? Is it the two-party system pulling each other apart? Is it just because of the political correctness and the vision of the election, which is happening because of Trump winning? Or is it just, it's always been this way, but it's been hyped up more? Or is it because of the media? Or all of the above?
Well, I think there is a mixture going on, but I don't know that. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of liberals that flipped their shit, and just what the fuck? I mean, just because like a conservative president, I think a lot of it had to do with the Electoral College thing, because that happened with George W. Bush Jr. as well, and they were like, this is the second time this has happened where the Democrat-elect won the popular vote, but then the other guy ends up taking the seat. What I've seemed to notice is that it comes in cycles. It's like we have like 2 terms of a Democrat and 2 terms of a Republican. It's almost like that's where America likes to see it or something. And I mean, like, so, you know, I've lived through a couple different Republican presidencies, maybe more, maybe 3 now. And to me, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, honestly, there's shitty things that happen under Democratic presidents as well. And I'm living through the 90s under Bill Clinton. It really was like a great time because like I felt like there was this good balance. But I think the polarization within the social sphere has a lot to do with misinformation.
I mean, you're kind of right about that with misinformation, and there's a lot of stuff that I didn't know about Obama before his last year in office, and we got this information last minute. It wasn't during the election. I didn't really like him the second time around. First time around, I voted for him, and there's a lot of stuff about Bill Clinton I disliked also. Same thing with Bush. But, like, you know, the executive college was supposed to be to the point of trying to avoid mob rule, that's one, and voter fraud. You're voting for the elected official in that area, not for the vote of all that. Because you think about bigger cities, like, have bigger populations, like New York, Pittsburgh, and other people's voices will be silenced because of lower populations in certain states, you know?
Right, and if we got rid of the Electoral College, then pretty much, California and some other state would basically be the determining factor of who would be the president, and all the other states wouldn't matter.
Exactly, and the only thing you have to do is please those 2, and that's it. You could say, hey, you guys don't have to pay taxes, everybody else has to pay taxes, and then that would be...
a deal.
You know, yeah, that would be screwing other people over. You know? But
some people have made the argument that... The original reason they put in the Electoral College was because at the time that was enacted, we lived in very, very small communities, and people were not very well educated back then either. So you would have somebody go around and collect information about the political standpoints of the constituents that lived in an area, and then they would go off and vote on their behalf. And nowadays, in the information age, where we have access to all this, I mean, for every one piece of factual information that you find, I think like there'd be like, okay, so let's say you have like 100 different pieces of information. You'll find one that's factual, and then the rest is garbage. but still, even with that, yet even given that being said, it's like we have the internet at the tip of our fingertips, on our cell phones, on our laptops, on our computers, and so it's like, well, what was the need for the Electoral College? Why can't it just be the lump sum vote of everyone in the United States, not based on state to state, but just like sole populist vote is the argument that some people have given.
No, I understand that argument, because without technology, I wouldn't be doing so much research as it is. Because I mean, in between of working
you'd be having to do your research like hands-on research, or being at the library like all the time.
Yeah. And what, to me, what really divides our country the most thing is not because only the political correctness or the two-party system. Two-party system always been at each other ever since the Civil War. They always hate each other. They always criticize each other. They always want their idea what they want, even though I agree with it or not. That, to me, I think it's mostly the mainstream media. I think it's the media that's really dividing our country, and it's not because it's only just biased, because they feed on controversy. They feed on negativity to the point that it makes them money. If there's more negativity, if they keep on pushing the issue of Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia, it feeds on more of what they're doing. And also, it seems like, the media are lobbyists. That it seems like these politicians can easily just pay them off to get them to shut up about certain issues, if you know what I'm talking about. And certain issues, they'd be like, no, we're still going to put it on there because we're acting like we're biased. I mean, that's how I see it is. It's not the fact it's entertainment, but it seems like these, the kids in high school who just gossip about everybody else, that's the mainstream media now.
Mainstream media is very, very divisive. It does seem like this side will say like I saw like a debate on CNN between like a liberal and a conservative, and then like the conservative said something about like, and that shows that conservatives are better people than liberals, and it's like, well, hold on, we're individuals here. We are not we really got to break away from this collective thinking. We're not collectivists. Like, what a lot of people don't realize is that depending on an individual subject, some subjects that you might be more left-leaning, some subjects you might be more right-leaning. It just depends on the subject. And most people are like that. Most people are all over the place on the political spectrum.
I mean, like I said, most of my viewpoints were pretty right-leaning, but if it comes to issues about, religion, gay marriage, and, the whole bathroom thing, most of my opinions are on the left. And the thing is, I can understand and sympathize with both sides. And, with the whole abortion issue, I kind of tend to say I'm not for either side, because either side, they have good points, but at the same time, they're both stupid. You can't be in the middle in between those. Just saying. It's like, if people want to have a choice to have an abortion, that's cool, but still make it safe in a way that would be a little bit more, I would say, not, there's a certain degree of like safetiness to it. There's some abortions that are literally, that people have nightmares of. They remember that they would hear the baby getting killed, and that's really too disturbing. I think there's a certain time that you can and cannot do it.
Not after the first trimester. After the first trimester, it's a no-go.
Yeah, like the third trimester, it's like that. And also, you think about it, I don't see it in a religious standpoint. I see it in more of a healthy, more of a mental standpoint. If somebody has an abortion, they're going to go through a lot of stress in their life and a lot of regrets, and they will have a lot of mental issues at the end. If it depends on the situation, because it's a very gray area conversation. So there's some people where you can look at it in a way that you can take any kind of subject, and you would have somebody who would be like, well, both sides have a good argument, but it's like, if we go for a compromise, most people would think that way on certain situations, especially when it's very, a very touchy subject like abortion.
Well, the way that I kind of look at it is like this. First of all, like I'll give you a quote from Ani DeFranco, who's a very liberal person, but she has like I think a pretty good point. She says, if you don't like an abortion, don't have an abortion and teach your kids how to avoid them.
And there's condoms, there's birth control these days, and
Plan B.
We have technology these days to avoid this kind of stuff.
Yes.
And also you look at the history of abortion. Margaret Sanger was a fucking racist, and she made it the purpose of abortion for eliminating black folks from the face of the earth. Literally saying that. And I think it's kind of messed up how, no joke, that a lot of these abortion clinics, about 90% of them, are in black neighborhoods. That's a weird coincidence. That's kind of off. If it was in doctors' offices, nearby clinics, that would be understandable. But like right by a bad neighborhood, by a liquor store, that's kind of a bit shady to me.
I've never seen that. Abortion clinics that I've seen have been pretty sanitary and very sterile, very professional. But the other aspect to it is that if we were to keep abortion illegal,
Sorry about that.
That's fine. If we were to keep abortion illegal, people are still going to do it, and they're going to do it unsafely. They're going to do it after the first trimester. Huh?
I agree with you on that, because we should still keep it legal. They will find ways to try to get rid of their child if they're that desperate.
Where do you think the term dumpster baby comes from? Prom night dumpster babies.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that they're still going to do it. So if they're why make innocent people into criminals? Why do that?
Yeah, of course. You think about it.
And do you know why? You know why it's not? Why they don't do it after the first trimester? Do you know why? Because
it's unhealthy. Because there's been times that I think it was in history that they've tried abortion before on people before the third trimester, that they would end up physically scarred up, not able to have a child after that. A lot of suicidal mental problems. The problems would go on and on and on. I can go on a list of problems that people would go through their head of regrets.
Well, with today's modern medical technology, doing an abortion after the first trimester would be a walk in the park. It would be a cakewalk.
Exactly.
But the reason why not after the first trimester is after the first trimester is when the central nervous system develops. And see, this is one of the reasons I just love Richard Dawkins. He has such a poetic way of putting, like, making science into some sort of poetry, and it's beautiful. But when he talked once about efficacy, and he says, when I think about efficacy, I have to think to myself, does it have a central nervous system? Can it feel pain? And after the first trimester, that's when the central nervous system, that's where you start seeing brain development. And so, like, one of Ben Shapiro's favorite arguments to make on abortion is the heart starts beating after a week. Yeah, but the central nervous system doesn't develop until after the first trimester. And when the central nervous system has developed, that's when a creature, a living being, a living entity can start to feel pain.
I can see that. Also, I have my eighth question is, in the United States, how the First Amendment rights getting attacked left and right from in certain areas with free speech zones in colleges that should be free speech everywhere, and how that people are getting attacked by their just only for their opinions, getting fired from work, from different ideologies, regardless if it's not offensive or not. That shouldn't not be offensive or not. That Germany, England, and a lot of these other European countries, they have these, and also Canada, that they have these free speech laws. That these laws are against free speech. They're hate speech laws that you can't say online, you can't say in public. You get arrested or thrown in jail. Like Tommy Robinson, for give you an example, for reporting on people getting arrested for sex trafficking, but he gets arrested for hate speech because
they were Islamic. Yeah.
Yeah, Islamic. And do you think that would happen in the United States?
I no, I think like even Bill Maher like said, how could any leftist, anybody who considers themselves, because a lot of people don't realize this, but not just because you're on the left doesn't mean you're a liberal. Yeah. And just because you're on the right doesn't mean you're not a liberal. There's a liberal left and a liberal right, but liberals have always been on the front ground of defending free speech. Look at PMRC, look at Mary Tipper Gore. The people that they were attacking were liberals. They were liberal artists. You can't sit there and tell me that Dee Snider, are you going to tell me Dee Snider is a conservative? I don't think so. I don't think Marilyn Manson's a conservative. He fought that shit. Oh, God, no. Yeah.
You might have one rock star like Ted Nugent, but again, like all his friends are very, very, very liberal. It's you're talking about 1 out of like 20.
Yeah. Ted Nugent would probably be a hard person to define politically.
Yeah, he is. I mean, I wouldn't say he's a conservative, but he's more of a right-leaning.
He's like a right-leaning hippie.
Yeah.
And that's what he is. He's like a right-leaning hippie.
But to me, I feel like the free speech laws, they will try to the best they can, the people who are the authoritarian left, will try to impeach on those rights of the First Amendment. Even though it's our First Amendment, they will still find ways around it to not only take out political enemies, but also take out public, take out people's rights away, take away their liberties away by, arresting them for just making a joke. There's been comedians been thrown in prison in England just for making jokes. There's been people who've been arrested in Germany for making, for singing karaoke of Kung Fu Fighting.
You gotta be kidding me.
It's ridiculous. Yes, it's ridiculous. And to me, it scares me that the left would actually look at, we need to be more like Europe, and they mean that kind of Europe. They mean the fact that you can throw somebody in prison, even though if they're a racist or not, they're going to throw them in prison. And, that's the thing is, I don't like people who are bigoted, narrow-minded assholes who are racist, regardless what skin color they are. You shouldn't hate somebody for their skin color or their race or their religion or, you know what I'm saying, right?
Well, but we have the freedom of speech to mock them.
Yeah, exactly. We have the freedom of speech. But the thing is, as soon as you arrest that person for hate speech, you arrest me soon enough just making a joke or making a song or making a statement that has no intentions to be hateful at all. That's what I'm afraid of. You can if they arrest Richard Spencer, then I'll be like, even though I hate Richard Spencer and he's a jackass, that would make me worry.
Well, let's think about this in a more objective standpoint of like, okay, so essentially they're talking about arresting Richard Spencer for talking.
Exactly.
For
I'm not saying
a verbal sound that comes out of your mouth. The only thing that gives our words meaning is what we think of them.
He would be thrown in prison if he was in England, to be honest with you. It's true.
That's
some stuff I would say online, like on Facebook, of like being Islamic phobic or something like that crap. They would throw me in prison. It's true.
Somebody told me once, be careful with your words. Words have power. And I thought to myself, no, words don't have power unless you give it to them. What really does have power is ideas, thoughts. An idea has power. But words themselves, they really only have power if you give it to them. But the thing is like, okay, so if you did this with free speech, you can make things illegal until you're bleeding out of your asshole and vomiting bile everywhere. And is it going to fix the problem? No, it's not. You can. They would
try to find more of the problem just to make people in fear.
Well, the thing is that you you can't control with legal action what somebody thinks, how they feel, their opinions. You can't do that. What's gonna they're gonna keep it up in their head, and they're gonna be pushed underground. But when you have free speech and they can talk about it openly, well, then you know what their stance is. You know what it is that they want. And let's be honest, like the whole racism thing, racism is not popular.
It's not.
No, it isn't.
Even down here in the South, like it's deemed as just ignorant and stupid. Like, you know, like I said, I've known the majority of the people in the South that I met, that about 99% of them are not completely racist. They might be a little religious, or they might have said, you need to go to church, son, because you need to get God in your life. And, you know, and then they would cheat on their wife and get drunk the next day. So, you know. But a bottle of bourbon out there. Hell yeah. We'll go out fishing sometimes. Look at that girl right there. It's like, man, you are married. But like it's just that's the thing is I met plenty of people who are open to gays. I met plenty of people who are open to African Americans, Latinos, Asian. Like I said, I met people who are completely redneck black. You know, they're black Southerners, and then they had a deep Southern accent, and they love hunting. They love grilling out. They just love drinking beer and having fun. It's like the stereotypes of the South is supposed to be these white hood racist rednecks with trucks and Confederate flags. It's not necessarily true. If you look at I actually made fun of them a few times. The liberal redneck. I met people like that here who act that way, and I'm like, oh God. We would debate with each other constantly, but it's annoying, and that's the thing is every time I argue with liberals, they would bring that up, especially when they've never been in Kentucky. It's just ironic that it's like, okay, you're prejudging people. You think we should in outhouses right now? Okay, whatever.
I've never met anybody who thinks that people who live in the South have shit in outhouses.
I'm not joking with you. I have met people who live up north who are surprised I'm wearing boots. They think I'll be walking around barefooted.
Well, that reminds me of the early days of the internet with dial-up and AOL. I had people in various places of the United States, like in big cities. They find out where I live, and they're like, "Do you have electricity?" And I'm like, "No, I'm on the internet from magic." Do you live on a farm? Do you have chickens? Do you have cows? And I'm like, actually, you know, I've never actually seen a real live chicken.
Oh God.
I mean, other than like at the store, like when they're poultry and I'm going to cook it and eat it, I've not seen a living chicken.
Like, I keep on forgetting that there's big cities in the South as well. I keep on forgetting that.
Well, they don't realize that where I'm at, it's like I've never really been on a farm. Like I live in a big city. I mean,
Lexington. It's Lexington here is not necessarily a big city, but it's not necessarily a small city. It's kind of in between. We do have a bus station. We do have like big, tall skyscrapers, and there's certain parts that are kind of scattered. They're somewhat small, but you get my point. It's like the third largest city, I think. Yeah, third, second, probably. Also, the other question is that you know. You're a big fan of goth rock music and, you know, music in general. And what kind of artist that you see yourself more as?
I think I relate and identify a lot with Roz Williams. I've heard a lot of interviews with him, and a lot of his viewpoints are very similar to mine. And I think I even like crushed on him for a while, and when I found out he died, I actually even cried, and I wasn't even sure why. I'm like, I've never even met this man in person, but yet I feel so sad that he's dead.
You felt a personal connection to the person. It's kind of like with me. I have a little bit of like, if you had to put myself in a category. I like Robert Smith because I am such a heartthrob, and you know, there's some times that I was with my ex-wife, and I would look in her eyes, listen to the Cure of the song Burn, and kiss her and say, I'm never going to let you go. And, I would sing songs from the Cure for her and hand her flowers. And when I first met her, when we first dating, me also, Ted Nugent. I'm a little bit of Ted Nugent and a little bit of Marilyn Manson into it. So I would say a little bit of those personalities. That I'm pretty rebellious. I'm pretty kind of a gun-ho, Second Amendment rights, liberty person, but at the same time, I'm kind of one of these people that religion to me is kind of like, it's just hypocrisy. I rebel against the fanaticalism of religion. Like, there's some good people who are Christian, but there's the jackasses who are just, to me, I would like to shock and scare the crap out of. Same thing with Islamic extremists. There's good people who are Muslims, fantastic people that I bop around. And there's people who, again, who are ISIS members who like to fuck shit up, and those people are disgusting. But I like to scare the crap out of them, shock the crap out of them, and disturb the ones who are basically the extremist ones. And to me, it's just, I'm not the fact that I'm fighting against fanaticism. And that's why I keep on saying to people that I see the progressivism today is the new Bible-thumping morons now, because they believe in this ideology of fanaticism, like if it was like the Roosevelt Baptist Church,
Yeah, they participate in dehumanization.
Exactly. It's just, it seems like they hold on to this belief of something, and you can prove them that it's not real, and you can dictate it, even if you take their own words, what they believe in, and turn them against them, and they still won't believe it. If I sit there and says, shall not judge before you judge yourself, since you're going to be a judgmental prick, since you want to preach at me about the Bible, there's verses in the Bible that says that shall not push thou will onto other people, and that's what you're doing. And it makes them more mad, and they want to argue with you more. And it seems like when I use their liberal ideology against them, they want to argue with me more. and I kind of see myself as that. There's somebody else that, musically you see yourself as well.
The social justice has often been compared to cult fanaticism. And it's very cult-like in the way that they brainwash. Like, I think that as much as they say that it's an irrelevant course anymore, I think it would be important for people to take logic and critical thinking courses and take philosophy courses, because I mean, like they come up to you and it's like, do you feel isolated and like people are just against you? Do you have trouble making friends? Because, I just want you to know that we're here for you, and we're not going to let them do that. And then so then you get sucked into it, like it's emotional blackmail. It's like, well, like only a racist wouldn't support Black Lives Matter, and it's like that is a guilt trip if you've ever heard one. I mean, it's like, can we please think for ourselves? Of course Black Lives Matter. Of course everybody's life matters. It's like when we see a catastrophic destruction, no matter where it is in the world, be it on the coast of Japan, be it in India, be it in the Middle East, be it in Africa, do we not go, oh my God, that's so horrible, like I hope everybody's okay, let's send relief, let's send the Red Cross? I mean, we do that. So for anybody to make such an asinine comment, to go into, like I saw a Black Lives Matter protest where they walk into a restaurant and they say, stand up if you believe that Black Lives Matter. Of course people are going to stand up, because of course their fucking lives matter. What kind of a fucking stupid question is that to ask the white people? And to ostracize those who don't stand up because they see through the bullshit. And it's like, well, of course they matter. Why would you think that they don't matter? What polluted your mind to make you think that nobody cares about you.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The one thing I do say about the group Black Lives Matter, they say Black Lives Matter, but the groups in general causes violence in their own neighborhood, destroy everything in their own hood. They tip over black guys' cars. They kill black officers and call black officers pigs, Uncle Tom, the N-word. And to me, the group in general doesn't really support Black lives because they don't give a shit about Black lives. They only care about their political agenda of, I'm a victim, I want to be a victim, feel bad for me, but not fix the situation. To me, it's just insane. It's like, to me, it's like, you're all bullshit. Like, the Black Panthers back in the 1960s, they would raise money to actually help out their own black community. What's Black Lives Matter doing besides this bullshit and talking?
Well, and
causing mayhem and violence and racism against people who are in interracial relationships. Like, literally, I think it was the founder of Black Lives Matter, I forgot what her name was, had a problem with interracial relationships.
Yeah, one of the founders, one of them, she was a sub-founder. I think the main founder is Trey something or other. And I did a lot of research into this. You really want to find out how corrupt Black Lives Matter has gotten. Just follow the money. They're a non-profit organization, so they accept donations. They sell merchandise, a lot of merchandise, and they've collected all this money. Okay, so then surely, since you're a non-profit organization, your shit is open to the public. So, where's the evidence that you've used this money that you've collected from your merchandise and the donations that you've received to hire an attorney for these black people that you say are innocent, that are going to court, that are being wrongfully convicted? Why don't you hire them a decent attorney with this money? Why don't you help the black people in your black community pay for rent? Why don't you help them with medical bills? Why don't you help people buy food? None of this can be found. It seems like every penny that has gone into that organization just goes into somebody's pocket. And it's like, well, so the question is do Black lives really matter, or are you just kind of a snake oil pusher?
And also the one thing is simply I completely disagree from Black Lives Matter is they are consistent to always attack the NRA, always call them a white supremacist group without any evidence or anything.
The NRA is trying to get black people into their community to support them.
You see, that's the thing is, with the NRA back in the 1920s gave guns to African Americans to protect themselves against the Ku Klux Klan. These were a civil rights group. They supported MLK. They supported Malcolm X. They supported the black community and they were abolitionists, Republican abolitionists who supported gun rights. To me, these people who complain about they're a lobbyist group. Sugar that you drink from your energy drink, the video games you play, everything you use has a lobbyist in Hollywood. Not Hollywood. Hollywood also in Washington as well. In the White House. There were always lobbyists with everything, even lobbyists with wrestling, entertainment, TV, you name everything, anything you want, lobbyists. They always have lobbyists. But the only lobbyist group that's actually there to actually defend a product for your rights to protect yourself is the NRA. That's our second thing that is actually an amendment that they're trying to defend. I mean, yes, do I agree with everything what the NRA does? Hell no. I mean, they actually they were actually making a political statement recently about Thomas's tank engine, and they were trying to make fun of Thomas's tank engine because they're trying to be diverse in the thing, and they made fun of him by basically calling the BS out of they were having this new train in Thomas's tank engine, which I think is ridiculous, of some African train from. I don't know what part of Africa it was, and they kind of basically, basically were making fun of Thomas the Tank Engine. Well, Thomas the Tank Engine has nothing to do about guns. I'm like, what the fuck? You're supposed to there to protect the Second Amendment rights, not to make other political statements. That makes no fucking sense to me. I don't agree with everything with that the NRA says, because it becomes more of a political group instead of a civil rights group. But nonetheless, that I do support the group in a way of what they do for efficiency, of what they are. They mean what they talk to, mean what they will, of protecting the right to defend yourself.
I think everybody has the right to defend themselves, and the gun rights issue I've been kind of neutral on, because like ultimately I'm unaffected by it. I don't particularly own a firearm, and I mean one of the questions that I ask to people is, so what are you, the crime rates are going down, like to people who are against guns. Okay, so I ask them, the crime rates are going down, so what are you afraid of? And it's people with guns. And so it's like, you go to the gun rights activists, they're like, well, I need to keep my gun for protection, but the crime rates are going down, so what do you need to protect yourself from?
Well, I mean, to me, I mean, with places like, Texas, places like Mississippi, Tennessee, I even say Kentucky, that they're very lenient about guns here, but there's less robberies, there's less murders, there's less. Yeah, I think you're froze.
No, I'm holding still.
Okay, sorry, but like I said, there's less violence. But you go to Chicago, you go to Detroit, you go to New York, you go to other states that restrict your gun control, and it's hard to get a gun, especially when you have a long wait list to actually get a gun. And we have the Brady bill. So, I mean, Brady bill, you think about it, doing a background check takes less than 15 minutes. You fill out a form, there you go. We already have enforced the Brady bill. If you want to complain about guns being in the wrong hands, enforce the laws that we have now. Everything would be okay. We wouldn't have so many problems that we have with shooters who are mentally insane, or people who are terrorists come across with guns, if you simply just enforce the Brady bill. And there are some people who don't do that, and I'm like, who sold them that fucking gun? That's ridiculous. But like I said, there's in areas when they have, you can if you pass a background check, get a gun, there's less crime. You go to somewhere stricter gun control, you're an easy target to criminals. Especially when you live in a bad neighborhood. The majority of people who live in bad neighborhoods are not going to, if you're a citizen who is, you can't get a hold of a gun, you're easy prey. They know you don't have a gun.
Well, there's a friend of mine that has a very interesting stance on guns. He feels that guns are too easy. He believes in the concept of like a true battle of not necessarily wits, but like of skill. And like, he's had people point guns at him before, and he's just gone up to him and hit him over the head with something, grabbed the gun out of their hand, and simply said to them, if you're going to fight me with your fist or a sword, but don't ever point a gun at me. But I made a video a while back talking about, like, I think the real resolve, if you want to appeal to the left that is against guns, and I understand their argument, I really do, but I understand the desire to keep them too. I don't like the idea of taking away a right or a liberty from people, but the thing is we keep having all these shootings, and so it's like, we need to do some better investigation into mental health and what it is, what's gone wrong in the brain that causes a person to go out and commit these mass killings. That to me would be the ideal.
That'd be really the issue, and I think something that we need to investigate. I think as a society or figure something out that something we can puzzle on, because I'm one of these guys that it's not the gun fault. It's not the gun's fault. It's the person behind the gun, and that's the issue. And also the thing is with the whole argument with guns is, I always try to make my point clear that the fact is that, with firearms, it gives you a better advantage, especially when there's a guy trying to run up to you who's full of muscle, like 250 pounds, 6'6" kind of guy running after a 5'5", 90-pound girl. But of course, that girl's going to get overtaken unless that she has a gun. Pepper spray might work. A stun gun might work, but for sure, damn chance that you even the odds when you have a firearm. I mean, yeah, you have. Don't get me wrong. You the guy you talked about, that the hand-to-hand combat. About 90% of people, if they point a gun at you, most likely they're going to be too afraid to shoot it. It is true. But there's always a small chance of that 10% that will shoot you and won't care at all because they have no emotions. They're not thinking about the repercussions after. You know, there's people who've been shot over less than $1.
Yeah.
Over a scuffle.
I know.
You know, I've seen it before. I'm not joking. And oddly enough, stolen gun.
Well, ironically, you know, you asked me about the Gothic influence, and I said Roz Williams. He did not own a gun for the same reason that I will not own a gun. Is not that I think that I'm a threat to other people, but more that I fear that I'm a threat to myself than anything. Because I mean, you could slit your wrist, you could take too much medications. These are very painful ways, very slow ways to die. But a gun, it's too easy, and there's not really a whole lot of time to think about wait a minute, what am I doing? And if you've slit your wrist, you have a moment to call the EMT, and they can take care of that. But I mean, you put a gun in your mouth and pull the trigger, and that's it. It's over.
Hey, that's the thing is that I mentioned that liberals would do, liberal media would do. They would count suicides as gun violence in the same category.
No.
Sometimes it is.
It's to me, it's not the same. Speaking from a person
it's not the same.
Speaking from my perspective, as somebody who has, I've been depressed ever since I can remember. I mean, I was suicidal when I was 7 years old. I mean, that's not normal. And I mean, I can tell you that if somebody really wants to commit suicide, if they really want to do it, whether a gun is accessible or not is irrelevant. They're going to find a way to do it.
Exactly.
Jump off a building, jump off a bridge, swallow too much medication, overdose on a drug, get a giant bathtub full of hot water or warm water, slit their wrists down, not over, and just lay in it. They'll bleed out. They'll die. I mean, Sylvia Plath tried to kill herself how many times, and then wrote a book about it, and then finally succeeded.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I understand. That's why I think we need to enforce the Brady Bill, because people who have mental health issues, who want to have those problems, they don't need to be around guns if they have suicidal issues.
No.
You know, they shouldn't. And that's the one thing I agree with that. I mean, it's kind of sad. I think that's what's some media outsources they've been called on. I think it was Ben Shapiro did a video one time that was supposedly was 18 school shootings in 1 month of 2018, which is now that was full of shit. That half of them I think were incidents not even involving guns. That it was shots fired but nobody was hit. Accidents happened. It was a school suicide that somebody shot themselves in the bathroom. I think it was a teacher. And it was 18 incidences, and it was actually a majority of them were not even the real incidents. So some of these crime stats that they say gun violence, sometimes I think they're fabricated, and they just mention it's you know what I'm saying? It's to me, I think they kind of fabricated almost.
Well, definitely, if they're including suicide as part of gun violence, then it's definitely being fabricated because it's not gun violence, it's suicide.
And they have enough nerve to say that we have more gun violence compared to other countries. Well, what happened about third world countries like Haiti, South Africa, Mexico with drug cartels? I mean, I can name you a bunch of countries in the United States that is economically failing. Sorry, I'm stumbling through my words. Economically failing. And there's more gun violence there, and you can't get a gun at all. There's more knife violence.
Well, you have guerrilla
In England.
warfare in some of those areas too.
Yeah. And there's more knife stabbings in England compared to New York City with compared to gun violence, and it's really insane. I actually looked up the stats on my city with gun violence compared to the knife violence compared to London, England, just out of an argument on Facebook, and I'm like, look, there's less gun violence here in my state compared to other states, and you have more knife deaths compared to your city. So again, what place is more violent?
Well, if we look at the crime stats across the board, like as far as Western nations go, America takes the cake on crime rates.
I will agree with that.
We are a crime-ridden country, but I maybe that comes from that we're the foundation of, and basically we were founded by, as you put it to me before, a bunch of anarchists.
Oh, semi-anarchists, yes. And that's what they were. I mean, they were guys who were saying, "Hey, fuck England, fuck your king. We're going to rebel against you, and we're going to take back our country, make our own, and we're going to do what the hell we want to."
It's a very intriguing question that not a lot of people have done a lot of research in, and maybe it would be worthwhile to do research in to find out why. Because like the Burger Krieg did a video about that where he talked about. He goes, America, this is a you thing. You're not the only country with guns. And he's right. There are other Western civilizations that have guns, and they don't have near the amount of crime rate that we do here in the United States. So the question is why is the crime rate? Forget the gun. Forget the gun. The gun is just the
tool.
The tool at hand. Forget the gun. The fact of the matter is why is our crime rate in the United States so high?
That is a good question, and that's the thing is, this is a question I don't even know why personally.
Nope,
myself.
I don't know that anybody does. I don't know that anybody really does.
I think Canada has guns, but they only have rifles. You're not allowed to have handguns, and they're really restricted on what their stuff is.
You can still shoot a person with a rifle.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was Belgium. They have guns. It was not Sweden. Norway. There was another country that had just as more guns than the United States. Belgium, not Belgium. It was Belgium. Trying to think.
I know Australia. Australia is really strict. Has really strict gun control policies, but they still
don't have any guns at all.
No, they do. They do. They hunt. They hunt kangaroos. They have bows and I mean like the steel reinforced bows. You can kill somebody with one of those easily.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think.
But still, their crime rate is lower
than the United States. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's something to be. It's just an interesting dynamic. So our crime rate is really high, but like if we look at sex trafficking, we are really, really low on sex trafficking.
Yeah.
Like there are European countries that have their sex trafficking rates are like
way high.
Yeah,
I can imagine. It's closer to Russia. A lot of the Russians and their cultures. It's literally a rape culture over there. Same thing almost like the Middle East.
But so the question in my mind is, why are the crime rates so high? Like, I don't really care about the utensil that's being used. I'm wondering why is it that the murder rates in the United States are so high?
Because you're most likely to use a knife. You're most likely to get stabbed. You're 5 times more likely to get stabbed by a knife compared to being shot by a gun. And it's true by statistics.
Either way, regardless, to me, it's like why is it that the murder rates in America are so high? I don't understand.
I think because we're bad for mental health. I think that's one of the main reasons why we're very bad with mental health in our United States. We don't do enough for mental health. But also, they want to explain also that Europe has a higher suicide rate compared to the United States. compared to the United States. Which, I mean, to me, that makes no sense anyway. Because I've made statements before, and I wrote down stuff on Facebook, and I was meaning to make a video about it, but I feel like the new social justice cause is assisted suicide on young youth. That I feel like that might be a new thing that they will try, and that scares me because they're already doing it in France. That people who have suicidal depression, that after about a third, I think it's about a third month, they said they would assisted suicide, and that's kind of scary.
I don't know about I don't know about that, what was going on in France, but I do know that people have been advocating for assisted suicide when it comes to dying. Like they get diagnosed with terminal cancer or something like that, and they don't want to be in a long-term care facility. They don't want somebody wiping their acid. They don't want all these things.
That's understandable.
Yeah,
that's completely understandable. But just to be sad or having depression problems, that's completely different.
Well, and we're making a lot of strides in that areas, but the thing is that I think that is important for people to understand when it comes to mental health is that sometimes it's not always just throwing a pill or a drug at it. It's having people are social creatures, and if we don't have interaction with each other, you will go into a depression if you isolate yourself from a bunch of people for a while, and you'll find yourself going down into a depression. And I think it's important that we stop demonizing people with mental health issues and try to understand them a little bit. I find so many people do not understand what mental health issues are. There's two kind of issues that go on. There's the ignorance issue where people don't know enough information about it, and then there's they think they know information about it because there's all these people wandering around that are like, oh, I have a mood disorder, and I don't think they do. I've had catatonic depressive episodes where I've been unable to move, where I've blanked out 20 minutes of my life, like just checked out. And
I can't see you right now. Unfortunately, he's kind of acting stupid. There you go. I don't know. I just went to check some email, and it's all suddenly it's like really dumb now. But with problems with people, what I have a problem with is I have an issue with adult ADD, ADHD, and I think it was I'm dyslexic as fuck. And you know this, I've told you about this before, that that I don't consider my problem, my issue, as a mental issue. I consider it as basically a crutch. It's something that's aggravating. I don't let it slow me down from what my goals are doing. There's people who claim they have issues, and that's aggravating as crap, and they live off welfare, or they live on a disability, which is they don't have a disability. It kind of aggravates me. But, I understand that if somebody has depression issues. I can understand if people have Down syndrome. I can understand people have issues like that because I don't understand it. It's hard for me to understand because I don't walk in that shoes before. I think some people have I think everybody has suicidal thoughts before in the past. But going through that every day, thinking about it, it's kind of... I couldn't imagine that.
It's mentally exhausting. It is absolutely mentally exhausting. But the thing is that I run into people all the time that like actually there was a psychologist that did a seminar about this. He said for 1 out of every 10 diagnoses will actually be truly have a mood disorder, and the rest will be like, well, they're just diagnosing it as a mood disorder, even though that's not really what it is. It's like it's normal to have mood swings based on various stimulus around you, especially when you're stressed out and things aren't going the way that they're supposed to, and like the kids are screaming and crying in the back seat, and you get angry and you shout. I mean, that's normal. But when you're just sitting there I'm enjoying life, everything is fine, and then suddenly it's just like switch, and all of a sudden it's like, I want to die. There's no point to life. And there's no stimulus to provoke that emotion. Nothing happened to you. Nothing's changed. It's just like a switch. It's just dopamine, endorphins are just shut off in your brain, and suddenly there's no feel good chemicals in there, and just you. I think people who have that truly have bipolar type 2 and bipolar type 1 or depressive episodes, I don't think they live in a perpetual state of complacency, which I think is the normal mindset for most people, is complacency. Like a lot of people say, happiness is a state of mind. No, happiness is an emotion. It's a fleeting emotion based on stimulus around you. It's something that makes you happy. But I think people who have bipolar type 1, bipolar type 2, and people with depression, I think their perpetual state of mind is not. They don't know what complacency is. They just they feel like, especially people with bipolar type 1, they either experience this extreme or this really low extreme, and people with bipolar type 2 predominantly spend 90% of their life in depression. And so that becomes the state of mind, the continual state of mind that they're in. And society used to treat it very differently a long time ago. They called it melancholia, like Edgar Allan Poe had melancholia. And they kind of let people that were like that, they left them to their own devices on their own vices on how they dealt with it. Like I believe Edgar Allan Poe was kind of a opiate, kind of a laudanum.
He was very depressed. He overused alcohol, drugs, and died pretty early. And they basically died like a rock star.
And that goes into what they call the self-medication hypothesis, that they're saying that a lot of people who have mood disorders tend to gravitate towards illicit substances or mind-altering substances because what they're trying to do is they're trying to fix that chemical imbalance in their brain. They don't even know that's what they're doing.
There's sometimes personally I smoke pot occasionally. I don't overdo it, but I drink a lot sometimes, and especially when I have a depressed day, or if I'm trying to wind down. But that's the difference between. I'm not that way all the time. I don't need a bottle of beer all the time. I mean, my dad, he is an alcoholic. He went to Alcoholics Anonymous. He told me, and that's the thing is, I got in trouble 3 times for drunk in disorderly conduct, but I don't get drunk every day. I don't need a bottle of whiskey every day. I don't need to drink all the time. But when you have those issues that I know people, they're most likely dive into drug abuse or alcoholism.
Well, and that's what the self-medication hypothesis shows, is that they're not really seeking a high. What they're seeking is to stabilize the brain chemistry. And we're finding this more and more to be true, is that some of these things that we've made legal are actually illegal, are actually very effective in treating mood disorders. They really are, and that's what they're finding with ketamine. Like ketamine is, I mean, it produces euphoria, but apparently small doses of it can like, let's say that somebody comes back from war and they're probably going to be stricken with PTSD. If you give them a small amount of ketamine, it'll prevent them from even getting PTSD. And it showed, they showed in the studies with using ketamine that it'll stop a depression for up to 6 months. And so, but then you have drug czars out there like Jeff Sessions that are like, no, this is a chemical that people can get high off of, and so we don't.
I remember the interview with Rand Paul was making fun of Jeff Sessions. That he's like, Jeff Sessions had been watching, I think it was been watching too many 1950s weirdness movies of marijuana, and it's like, God, his mindset's like back in the 1950s. It's like sad. He was making fun of him on the Late Night Show. And this thing is with Rand Paul, he supports hemp and hemp products, hemp, a lot of stuff that we have with hemp in the state of Kentucky actually helps out with certain illnesses and with also with with anxiety, also not only that with allergies as well. And not only that, Jeff Sessions has a problem with hemp. He thinks hemp is like marijuana, and I'm like, no, it's not.
Hemp.
Yeah, he really thinks that hemp is like marijuana. Jeff Sessions, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, well, here's some interesting facts. Like, did you know that there are medicinal purposes to nicotine? For instance, as somebody who has schizophrenia, if they have a cigarette, it will stabilize their brain chemistry for 15 minutes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And there is an active ingredient in cannabis and in the CBD oils that is an antipsychotic. It actually keeps you from developing psychosis. And that's a valuable tool. It's like, why are we using it? Okay, and LSD and mushrooms have been shown to be very, very effective in treating certain mood disorders as well. In fact, Timothy Leary was approaching that back in the 1960s. I don't know, many people don't know this, I guess, but Timothy Leary was a Harvard University professor that specialized in psychology. He even helped develop the psychological exams for people going into prisons. And so when they tried to shut him down, because he was using LSD along with psychotherapy, and he had a 100% success recovery rate, and I'll say that no psychologist has that. None.
Damn.
He is the only psychologist ever to have a 100% success recovery rate using small doses of LSD along with psychotherapy. And we're talking about repeat offenders of serious offenders like murderers, rapists, such like that. And the government came in and said, well, you can't use this product because the government did their own testing on LSD, and they would overdose the person. They would give them way too much LSD, lock them in a room, strap them to a bed, and I mean, if you know anything about the drug LSD or mushrooms, you know that you're going to have a bad time if you do that. You're going to have a bad trip. And they watch him freak out and go, well, this isn't a safe drug. And they came in and they shut him down and they tried to arrest him, and he passed the psychological exam because he helped make it. And
also the one thing is that one thing I support about this president recently that he's talking about legalizing marijuana for medical reasons, and that's another step forward to legalizing it for just for fuck's sakes, if one to smoke, if one wants to smoke, which is not a big deal. And
I think
he's trying to me also he's trying to talk about prison reform. Every time there's a conservative talk about prison reform, the left freaks the fuck out and they try to make him look like he's a bad guy. Oh, he's just lying to you. And him trying to legalize marijuana, I've talked to leftists before, and they roll their eyes. Oh, he's gonna overtax it. I'm like, oh, what the fuck? This is the first, I would say, conservative Republican would even consider legalizing or even have for medical reasons. That is, to me, that's something that is, well, surprising. What would you say?
No, I don't think it's surprising. I see more and more right-leaning people that are starting to come out and say that, maybe legalizing marijuana isn't such a bad idea. And I think that's a good thing. I think that they do need to legalize it both medically and I've always stood behind recreational use. I don't see the harm in it. It's way less intrusive than alcohol. So, I mean, if we can have alcohol legal, then we should definitely be able to have marijuana legal because it is nowhere near as intoxicating as alcohol.
Well, that's true.
It doesn't even do it doesn't even do nearly the amount of damage that alcohol can do to a person. I mean, it's just crazy to think. It's like saying we should have cocaine legal, but tobacco should absolutely not be legal. It's like, what sense does that make?
Other drugs like crack cocaine, heroin, other stuff, that should be illegal to have, and I agree with that. Certain things or certain drugs, yes, but marijuana, to me, it's no worse than tobacco. I think, matter of fact, I think tobacco's a lot worse. Marijuana, I mean, in a way,
Well, you're not going to smoke. You're not going to smoke weed like you smoke cigarettes, are you?
Exactly. Yeah. And with marijuana, I occasionally smoke, but the thing is, there's people who smoke all the time and they waste their lives on it and they become really lazy. There's people who drive high and they get in car wrecks and they wonder why they got in car wrecks, or they drive too slow. They even forget things when they're high. Occasionally, it's no big deal, but every day it seems very irresponsible.
I don't know. I smoke pot every day.
Well, you're different. I mean, you're not me. If I smoke pot, I'd be like, "Where is my keys at? Damn it!" I look forever in my.
Some of the videos that I have up on YouTube, like I'm stoned in them, and you can't even tell. I might fumble over my words a little bit. I might be like, "Oh yeah." Anyways. No.
Well, I mean, with marijuana, I mean, it affects people in different ways. I mean, I know people who smoke pot and they can't stop breathing so heavy, and they go, "Man, I don't know what's going on, man, but I feel like I have a lot of energy." I'm like, "Man, just chill out, bro, chill out," and they still keep on this.
I don't understand this concept of marijuana being addictive either. Like, I haven't smoked today, and I'm not all like, I need my marijuana. I mean,
I smoke it like rarely, and I don't need it every time. Like, I smoke it. I smoked it when I go to the tattoo parlor to get some tattoos done, and I relax. It helps me relax, and it helps me go through the tattoo while I use it. So I mean, it helps out a little bit,
Well, for me, I use it as a mood stabilizer, and it's the most effective mood stabilizer I've ever seen in my life, because one of the problems with mood stabilizers is that there's a thing called you experience like this emotional dysphoria, where you don't feel like you're capable of experiencing the entire emotional spectrum that you are capable of feeling, and you don't feel like yourself. And the thing is that you build up a level of this really toxic chemical in your body, and it's there all the time. And so even when you stop taking it, you go through a sense of withdrawal with antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, and antidepressants, where it's still affecting you even though you're not taking it anymore. And your body withdraws from it, but not like a nicotine withdrawal or not like a heroin withdrawal. It's more like you feel really fucking weird, and you don't have the desire to take it. It's just your body kind of is detoxing, I guess. But see, like I've been on heroin. I've been addicted to heroin before. I was addicted to meth before, and I mean I smoked cigarettes for 20 years before I switched to vaping. I am a caffeine addict, and I can tell you that, like, I know what addiction is. You better believe I know what addiction is. I was addicted to meth for 2 years. I was addicted to heroin for 2 years. I don't know how long I've been addicted to coffee. Or caffeine. I've been consuming that for a long time, and same with nicotine. But
caffeine, that's my childhood.
Yeah.
Oh, Mom, get some coffee. It's like, you're too young. I don't care. Unfortunately, it's are you gonna put the whole thing on YouTube, or are you gonna put it in sections?
I'll put the whole thing on YouTube.
Oh, fantastic! Because I want to try to download it, and after I download it, I'm gonna cut. Put it on my channel, because I mean, to be honest with you, the thing is, when we have conversations, it goes on for a long time, and you know what? It's very interesting conversation. Like a lot of conversations that we have, I'm surprised that we don't put them on YouTube.
I need to figure out, like, I've tried playing around with live streaming. I can do live streaming when I do gaming. That's easy. That's really easy to do. But I need to figure out how to get my software programs to live stream onto YouTube, and that would be really helpful, because then because right now, like, I'm looking at this recording that I have. It's at 1.5 gigabytes because I've got my camera, which is shooting at 1080p, plus what's going on your camera. And then I'm going to have to put that into a video editing software, and I'm going to have to line up the audio that I'm recording on a different device with the actual video footage.
You might have to make a part 1, part 2, because I mean, my phone sometimes won't save not too much of anything. Sometimes it depends on what it is. Sometimes, so I remember one time I downloaded a movie, it couldn't save anything of it, like it was because it was that long.
I might be able to send you the Impex file. I'm not sure. Sure.
Does that work? No, they would definitely work. I mean, they would work a whole lot more better. Not only that, if we do live streaming, you probably can get more just me and you talk.
Right, and I won't be sucking up my computer's memory storage. Like I said, 1.5 gigabytes.
Hey, I want to try to get off here, man. I want to get some sleep because I have to work tomorrow. It sucks.
Hey, you know.
Hey, work tomorrow, and that growing job of like just insaneness.
Nope. And I don't really talk about my job too much on my YouTube channel because, you know, the agreement.
My bad, sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, you know, I like the agreement that's there on the table. It's like I keep their name out of my mouth, and then I can do whatever I want on social media. They mind their own business.
Well, me personally, I will say what I do, but I don't know what company I work for. I clean up crap up for a living, basically. Shoveling mud. It's not fun. This is basically a dirty job.
I have a very labor-intensive job. I work in a warehouse, and it hurts.
Yeah, I mean, I worked those kind of jobs before. It's not fun. It's not even worth the pay sometimes. But hey, I gotta get off here, man. If you want to call up later and talk, just to talk, that's fine, man. You know. All right. I'll talk to you guys later, bro.
All right.
Peace.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed this lovely chat session. If you would like to see more by the Gothic Republican, I will leave a link to his channel in the description below. And with that, I'm out!